All right, Blue by 90, episode 21. On this episode of Blue by 90, we talk about our top five quarterbacks. We then go on to our 2021 recruiting class, and then we go around the league a little bit, talk about some other Big Ten teams, and then we wrap it up with some defensive highlights, some of our best defensive players. Check us out on Instagram and Twitter at Blue by 90, and also on YouTube at Blue by 90 Podcast. Thanks, and enjoy the show.
This is the University of Michigan.
Touchdown, Michigan!
And midcourt extra pass.
And it goes for the win! The three-pointer by Jordan Poole!
Down the sideline! Peoples-Jones! Touchdown, Wolverine!
Welcome to Blue by 90, your Michigan Wolverines podcast. We are four dudes who talk maize and blue. I'm Kalen, joined by Nate, Jack, and Ro.
Yo.
Guys,
Up.
I hope you're all doing okay today. I hope nobody's got COVID.
I haven't tested positive yet.
All right, you all look okay to me if you're at home. So, all right. Well, let's jump right into it, and let's jump into the most exciting topic of the day here. Quarterbacks. Quarterback is the most important guy on the field, right? Michigan, we've had some decent quarterbacks, but Jack, I think you got something to say. So,
yes, and actually, sadly, going back, we've all got a list of top five quarterbacks at Michigan during our lifespan, and going back, it's not as happy as I remembered it when I looked at all the numbers. But we've all got our top fives here, and do you guys want to go through like each of our number one, and then two, and then three, and then four, and then five?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Kind of like all go around.
Or do you want to go five first?
We can go five first. Let's start with five.
All right.
So number five for me, in my lifetime, Michigan quarterback, I've got Jake Rudock. He went 10-3 in his only season at Michigan. And again, this is during our lifetime. Honestly, I almost didn't put him in there because he didn't win a game versus Michigan State or Ohio State. He only had 1 year to do it, but he lost to both of them that year. But the positive thing about Rudock is he had the highest completion percentage out of all the quarterbacks that I have on here. And I believe he's either very close or he's number one for pass yards in a season in that year with 3,017. So that's my number five guy. Not much more to say about that. He didn't start off too hot with Michigan, but he definitely got better and better and better as the season went on. But Jake Rudock, that's who I've got for number five. Nate, what do you got?
I got Drew Henson. This is there's no stats for any of mine, so you should know that. This is just my vague memory over the past 20 years. Drew Henson was like, I just remember as a kid going like, oh yeah, and I got my like number 7 jersey. Yeah, Drew Henson. That's it. What do you got?
Yeah, number 7 for me was Henny, but Henson for me would have been on there, but I don't ever remember him playing, so that's why I didn't have Henson or Brady. Henson or Brady I don't have on there because of that, for that reason. But yeah, Ro, what do you got?
I agree. I'm in the same boat. I feel like I have recency bias big time here in my list. So number 5 for me is the one and only Shea Patterson. He came in, I mean, if you look at his time here at Michigan, without the hype that he was going to be a Heisman, he actually did pretty well for us. And so there's no way for him to live up to those Heisman expectations. Can't throw a deep ball to save his life, but he got the job done for us. And I think we're going to look back at it and probably be like, dang, I miss Shea. There's going to be times where he made plays happen that maybe couldn't have happened without him at the helm.
I agree with that recency bias. I'm with it. Right now I'm like, you know what? I'm not a fan of Shea, but I think years down the road, I'll look back a little bit more fondly on his time at Michigan.
For sure.
Yeah, I think the stats are kind of in his favor. Yeah. I struggle with this list because there's a lot of QBs that I really like, and a lot of them at Michigan have performed very much in the same boat, especially in our lifetime. But I got to kind of agree with Jack on this one, at least for my number 5 pick. Number 5, I got Jake Rudock. The guy was not really anything before he came to Michigan, and then he came here and he progressively got so much better that by the end of the year, I'm like, dude, let's throw the ball, man. Jake Rudock. And then I'm watching Lions games going like, dude, put Jake Rudock in, right?
Just the level of comfort that I felt in that Florida game, it was insane. I was like, let's just throw the ball 80% of the time. It was crazy.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. I really wish that he would have had more time at Michigan, even just one more year, and we're in great shape, I think. So, yeah.
Well, can you imagine him with the 2016 team?
That's what I'm saying, man.
Take away Walton State and you put in Rudock, man, we're a dangerous team that year. I think we're in the playoff, no question.
For sure.
Ooh.
Yeah, I agree.
I like that. All right, Jack, what you got?
Back from 2016.
What you got for number 4, Jack?
So number 4, I've got Shea Patterson. And again, similar, like what Rose said, recency bias. When you look at the numbers, if we were to do this 10 years from now, and let's say there was just no Michigan football in the last 10 years, I think Shea might be higher on my list. But the reasoning for him to be even on there at all, he went 3-3 versus the rivals. He was undefeated against Michigan State. We were actually favored against Ohio State 2 years ago. And I thought we were going to win that game. I think a lot of us did. And he split with Notre Dame. So he was 1-1 with Notre Dame. Overall career record at Michigan was 19-7. Didn't have the opportunity to win a bowl game, but he threw 45 touchdowns to 15 interceptions, had 5,661 yards passing for, and at a completion percentage over 60%. So, like I said, based on the numbers, looking at all these guys, that ranks him on the top. But the reason I don't have him higher on the list is he wasn't able to capitalize against Ohio State when we should have, I believe we should have won some games. And it's not all his fault.
The defense has to not give up 60 points. So
Right. So that's why I've got him number 4. So yeah, I got Patterson number 4 for me. Nate, what do you got?
I had Jake Rudock, but we already talked about him, so I'll let Ro. What do you got at 4, Ro?
All right, I think I have a little surprise here, but I'm gonna go with Devin Gardner at 4. I think the talent he had was phenomenal, and I actually watched him in the state finals in high school. He was unreal at Inkster High School, just an unbelievable talent. And so I think he got a bad shake here at Michigan because the coaching, the guys around him, it was. I go back to those games against Michigan State when we had negative 48 rushing yards. I think he got sacked, honestly, 30 times in that game. He didn't have an O-line that could save anything. So I think given, better opportunities and players and coaching around him, he could have been unbelievable for us just with the talent he had. He had a cannon. He was 6'7", I think. I don't know what he was, but he was huge. It seemed like it compared to Shea now, the last quarterback we had. And so, and he could move with his feet too. So that's my number 4.
Yeah, I saw Devin play I saw Devin play against Pioneer. And I was a junior at the time, and it was at Eastern Michigan Stadium, and we were playing Pioneer the next week. And then Pioneer ended up winning that game, even though Devin was just unreal. And I was like, oh, okay, we're going to lose next week to Pioneer.
Dude, he almost beat Ohio State, too. Remember that?
Yeah, 42-41, man. And he did it on a broken foot.
Broken leg.
On a broken foot, yeah.
That was the closest we've been to beating Ohio State in 15 years.
Well, 2016, but we don't talk about that, right?
Yeah.
Well, what was he playing on a broken foot too, right? One of the games?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what you're saying. Yeah.
That's the one, yeah. All right. Well, my number 4 is John Navarre. honestly, he could be ranked a lot higher on my list, but I just remember even being a little kid, just going like, "Dude, why are you overthrowing every receiver?" So
No.
Killing me, Kalen. You are
No.
killing me.
How
So
dare you?
John
Caitlin?
Navarre, there couldn't be a more vanilla quarterback than John Navarre, like in the history
Come
of
on.
Ah, yeah. What the hell, man? Dude, I
ask
love
that
John
guy.
Navarre.
Ask that guy to
Dreams.
move in the
Remember-
pocket.
he couldn't take
Show
two
me a
steps to the
John
side.
Navarre rollout play.
You see his run with Minnesota? That was the best trick play of all time because nobody's expecting that. Nobody's
Dude,
gonna be
I
like,
wanna
oh yeah, John
It
Navarre
was
on this
all
play
a
with a
play.
touchdown pass.
Dude, we need like a
Fake
Michigan
it.
football challenge where John Navarre races Tom Brady. I want to see that.
That'd be a close one.
But John Navarre, he's beat Ohio State. He was a great Michigan quarterback, and that's my number 4. So I'll turn it back over to you, Jack, and keep going down your list.
All right, number 3. I feel like he'll be in everybody's top 3, but for number 3, I've got Denard Robinson. His numbers were insane. And looking back when I was kind of going through it, I don't even think I'm trying to think who the quarterback was his freshman year, 2009, because I think he and Tate kind of split time. And I can't remember when Denard actually became the starter. So, his completion percentage wasn't anything to, be proud. It wasn't awful, but he completed passes at 57%. Total yards he had in his time at Michigan, passing and rushing, he had 10,745 yards.
That's insane.
Insane. He had 91 total touchdowns, 49 passing, 42 rushing. He went 4-5 versus rivals, but he beat Ohio State. Although it was a down year, I do not care. He beat every single rival, and he's one of the only quarterbacks in this list to actually do that. So he's my number 3. He was definitely, I think I put him number 1 as the most exciting quarterback I remember watching Michigan, but I've got Denard at number 3.
Nate, go for it.
And the Sugar Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
And the
Okay.
Sugar Bowl. Forgot about Sugar Bowl victory. But yeah, go ahead,
Sugar Bowl
Nate.
victory. That was crazy. That was one of the craziest games I've ever seen. That whole season was crazy. The Notre Dame
crazy.
game, that game, Jesus.
Yeah,
I got
who you got?
I got Tom Brady. I feel like it's just disrespectful to not put the GOAT somewhere in there. And I do remember I remember the Alabama game. Like I remember watching that at my house growing up. It was insane. So I don't know. That's more of just like a memory type thing. Like, oh yeah, I remember like this is like it's just such a long time ago. I don't know what I'm talking about, bro.
No, but if you look back at that game though, like it's crazy that they won that football game. He went lights out in the fourth quarter to come back. So against Alabama. We're on 3, right? All right. I had Rudock at 3. I think even though he was only there for a year, he still had, some of the best stats. And like Nate said, I haven't felt that comfortable with a quarterback, I feel, since, early 2000s. So, I had Rudock at 3.
Yeah, my number 3 is Denard Robinson. Just crazy athlete, super fun to watch. And he's kind of epitomizes a lot of the Michigan quarterback that I remember, when I was in high school. Just super fun to watch. Amazing athlete. Nothing much more you could say than that.
He was like the only thing to watch in that time, man.
Yeah, that's true. Wasn't much more to watch. That's not a lie. But I see Denard now, and my heart skips a beat. Right? I'm like, oh my gosh, that's Denard. So
good memories with him for sure.
Exactly. So Jack, what you got for number 2?
All right, number 2, I got Chad Henne. He went 6-6 versus rivals, 2-2 versus Notre Dame. undefeated against Michigan State, but then another one where, wasn't able to beat Ohio State. They did have the game in 2006, which was a crazy game. I remember watching when they were 1-2. But his stats as far as his time at Michigan, he had 59.7% completion percentage, threw for 9,715 yards, had 87 touchdowns. He didn't. I'm trying to think. I think the highlight of Henny's career was probably his last game against Florida. He beat Florida in the Capital One Bowl. That was Lloyd Carr's last game. That was in between Florida's 2 national titles. So that was my highlight of watching Chad Henne. But I mean, like, he was the guy. Like, that's like when I really it was a little bit after when I really kind of remember watching Michigan football and really enjoying it and kind of buying into all of it. So he's number 2 on my list. What do you got, Nate?
Dude, I got Chad Henne. Chad Henne. He was there for 4 years. And I remember there was some times where he was a little inconsistent, but just having a quarterback who starts 4 years in a row at that time was a big deal. Even though it was only a decade ago. I remember it was him and Mike Hart, and it was like, man, we got 2 freshmen in our back. It's like, it was crazy, but he did a great job, and he's still playing in the NFL, which is really insane to me.
He won a Super Bowl.
He did.
He did.
Yeah, it's crazy. So Chad Henne, man,
ride Pat Mahomes' coattails.
Yeah, a lot of good memories with Chad Henne, and yeah, Ro, who do you got?
A lot of people would say that Pat Mahomes wouldn't be who he was without Chad Henne. So
I believe
it. At 2, I had Denard, mostly because of the excitement, and I think that if Rich Rod wasn't so damn stubborn with our defense, and he let the defense actually, we didn't run the 3-3-9. We have, somebody else come in and somebody else can run the defense. We have a decent team there because our offense with Denard at the helm was throwing up 50 points a game, but we'd give up 55, our defense would. So if we have, if Rich Rod changes his whole defense and lets somebody else run it, I think those years are much different. And Denard is seen, I know as a quarterback, he's not your typical quarterback. Like Jack said, his passing stats aren't great. But he also, the same thing with Gardner, had a shit offensive line. He was running for his life, and thank God he could run. So, and the biggest thing, honestly, the biggest reason why he's up there at number 2 for me is because he's a regular at my tailgates. So that's really why I put him up there.
I remember we'd be walking in the tailgate. I'm like, is that Denard Robinson? He's like, yeah. Don't worry about it. He's a regular here.
Makes my day.
Dude, Denard too, when he put on some weight, man. Like, I saw him. I think Jack and I saw him at one of the games walking down, and I was like, oh my god, dude, his shoulders.
He's an NFL running back, man. Give him a break. He had to put on some weight.
Dude, I mean, I'm just impressed, man. That's insane.
Yeah.
All right, Kalen, what do you got?
My number 2, it's got to be the GOAT, right? I got to mention him somewhere in this list, and I only put him at number 2 because I really. Of course. Who else? Actually, it's Nick Sheridan, right?
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Steven 3.
No, Tom Brady, of course. Come on now. No, but it's really just because I have kind of vague memories of him playing. I was pretty young. I can't remember a full game with Tom Brady in a Michigan uniform that I didn't rewatch. But I have to mention him somewhere in this list, so I'm going to put him at number 2. So I think that's fair. Jack, bring us up to number 1.
All right. And I appreciate you guys mentioning Brady because I wasn't going to because I don't remember him playing at all. I don't know what was going on with me at that age. Maybe I was just drinking too much pop and my brain was fried, but I do not remember watching Brady or Henson play, so that's why they're not in here. But this may not be a popular choice. Apparently to Kalen, he's not the number one quarterback, but I got John Navarre.
Oh,
John Navarre, man. I remember as a kid finding out his address. I went to his college house. I had to be 10 years old, 9 or 10 years old. Went to his college house, had like a Mays, Michigan hat. And I brought a football. My buddy and I don't remember how we figured out his address. We found his house, knocked on his door. Pretty sure it was like a Saturday. They're probably like darting. And his like roommate or buddy or teammate answers the door and he's like, "Can I help you guys?" And I was like, "Is John there?" And he's like, "Yeah, let me go get him." And he came out, and dude, he was the friendliest guy. He was like, hey kids, what's up? He signed some stuff, threw the ball with us for a little bit. That may or may not factor in to him being my number one. But honestly, when you look at the years, man, the 2003 season was was my first really memorable year that I remember watching Michigan football. We were undefeated versus our rivals. We beat Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Sparty all in the same year, which doesn't happen a lot. I think that might have been the last time that it happened.
That's true.
And we went to the Rose Bowl. I mean, we lost, but we went to the Rose Bowl. And I remember getting one of those T-shirts that had like Michigan versus USC Rose Bowl. And that was like the first year that really was like, okay, I'm like diehard. I love this team. I love this university, all that. So, yeah, John Navarre, number one. Anybody who disagrees is wrong. Go ahead, Nate.
Well, Jack, I think you'll be happy because my number one choice was also John Navarre.
Yeah, baby.
So, yeah. I just, like you said, man, he just seems like from a different era, right? It's just like when Michigan people talk about like, oh man, like we used to beat Ohio State and, Sparty was like, kind of a nothing, right? And it's just, that's what I think of. It's like John Navarre, even though he like, maybe he's not the fastest runner in the world. I just remember going like, man, those were like good times. Same thing with you, Jack. I mean, like, I just remember the Ohio State game, right? My mom got me like a Charles Woodson jersey and it had the like 100th anniversary patch, right? It's like,
yeah,
game, they won. It was a big deal. Like, dude, John Navarre, he was the man, dude. He was the man.
Do you guys remember those jerseys too? Like back when Michigan actually went to the Rose Bowl, they'd get like the Rose
biggest
Bowl
rose
stuff.
ever.
Oh,
like,
dude, that was the dopest jersey
on both
ever.
sides.
I love that. We need to come on. Jordan Brand needs to hire me. I want to redesign some of these uniforms, get some of the old stuff back. That was like the coolest uniform.
Well, that was when their shoulder pads were so big back then that they could have that big of a logo on there. These guys are wearing like youth size shoulder pads these days. You couldn't fit that logo on the whole jersey at this point.
Yeah, I remember when I was in middle school, man, we had those like shoulder pads and you're just like this all day long. Right? You're like, how am I supposed to like hit somebody like this?
Right.
And then in high school I got my first pair of shoulder pads that were like actually like fit my shoulders. I was like, oh my God, this is completely unreal. So we went from John Navarre to shoulder pad talk. It was good.
That was quick.
Tom Brady still got his shoulder pads though, right?
Yeah,
he does still have his shoulder pads.
Same shoulder pads.
That's correct. All right. My number one, I didn't have John Navarre on my list.
I know that. It's fucked up.
I feel like I am gonna catch some flack here for that, but that's fine. My number one was Chad Henne. I mean, I remember that those were like the good days of Michigan football, and I specifically remember, I mean, the throw to Braylon in the against Michigan State on Halloween. Like that was, I remember our power went out on Halloween, and so we had to go out to the car and listen to it instead. But I mean, it just felt like, and I've watched back those games too of Chad Henne, and being the 4-year starter is big, and Braylon, Mario Manningham, man, those guys could fly, and I felt like Steve Preston. Those were the times where we like truly had a great QB to wide receiver combo, and he had, for him to have those with all three of those guys who are three probably of the greatest, wide receivers in Michigan history, that says a lot about Chad Henne. Kalen, what do
Yeah.
you got? Finish it up for us.
Yeah. Well, my number one is undefeated against Ohio State. He's undefeated against Michigan State. It's got to be Ryan Mallett, right? No. I'm just kidding. No.
I
love
wish
Ryan
it
Mallett.
would have been. If we would have kept Lloyd Carr, we would have had Ryan Mallett. We would have been on a whole different trajectory.
Yep.
Yeah. That's in
You
different
know.
universe somewhere where we've
I
beaten
remember being
Alabama
so
38 times.
hyped. Oh yeah, I remember being so hyped having Mallett come in, and then just bring in Rich Rod, which is blow up the whole program.
Right. No, for real. My number one, I'm with Roe. It's Chad Henne. I mean, I agree 100% with him. He kind of represents that era of Michigan football where I was like, man, it just seems like, we can actually win. Like we have a chance against good teams and all that kind of stuff. I say all that, but I bring the stats up and we were 0-4 against Ohio State with Chad Henne. But
Yeah.
But I remember being younger, watching him and just having that feeling of like, man, that's our guy, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And dude, Ro, not to cut you guys off, but when you were saying like the good old days, like we all remember that era as the good old days, right? Like that was Michigan football. That's who we loved. That's who we rooted for. In Chad Henne's first season, they went 9-3. So like a typical Harbaugh year, like this year. But they went to the Rose Bowl. So it changes the whole perspective, right? 2005 season, they went 7-5.
Really?
Wow.
And lost to Nebraska in the Alamo Bowl. So 7-6 in 05.
Wow.
Whoa.
In the Alamo Bowl.
In 2006, that's when we were 11-0 going into Ohio State game. We finished up 11-2. We lost to USC in the Rose Bowl. And then 2007, we were 8-4 after the regular season. And then we beat Florida in the Capital One Bowl. So, like, compare that to now where, like, everybody has these unreal expectations. And believe me, 100%, I am that person. If we look back at this, I'm just like, what am I thinking? Why do I expect Michigan football to be up here when we've never been past, like, here, right?
It's
like,
Nick
it's all
Saban.
because Ohio State, yes, Nick Saban, Ohio State's dynasty. Like, these years, we were still losing to Iowas. We were losing to, like, Northwesterns. But it's because Ohio State is up here, Bama's up here. All these teams are up on this fucking top tier, and we're the same place, if not a little bit better. But because everybody else,
that is Michigan football, though, right? People don't understand. They think we're the Nick Saban, we're the Ohio State, we're the Clemson, but we're not.
That's the problem.
We just have. It's probably our fan base, which is us. Thinking that we are those people, that team, but we're really not. We're Michigan football. We're the team that goes, 9-0 and then loses to Iowa. Like I remember in 2016 when we went down to Iowa and lost, and I watched it with my dad, and my dad's just like, I've watched that game 100 times. Like that specific game I've watched happen to Michigan every single year where they somehow shit the bed at, sometime, whether it's the last game of the year or somewhere in the middle, like we all get hyped up, but we end up that 9-3, 10-2, that's Michigan football. If you really look at it, how many we've gone, 12-0 or 11-1, how many times? 1, 2, 3 in the last 30 years? We're really not that team. And so it sucks, but it's the reality. And it would help.
I think too, like a lot of that stuff you hear is like, I got high school buddies who, Michigan fans, right? Like I text them and see what they're doing. They're same thing. They're like, we kind of always been like that, So I think there is a lot of fans who have like some sort of like reality that they like that they live in, and then there's like another side where there's like some crazy hysteria that's like just brings out the like 2-year-old in you where you like want to
well, it's also
I get pissed, right? you gotta
I hate to sound like the president, but I think a lot of this is fake news, right? Manufactured by the media in a lot of ways. How many times have you seen people on ESPN going like, Jim Harbaugh can't get it done, blah blah blah. Well, if you look at the history, he's already got it done. So now he's in uncharted territory, right?
Yeah.
I will say that the thing, if you do go back to, Lloyd Carr and before that, Bo didn't win a national championship, I don't believe, right?
No.
But what they did do that Harbaugh hasn't done is they've won the Big Ten consistently, or were, in contention. So we haven't even gotten to that point, where we have 1 year in the that we were second in the Big Ten East or whatever, but we're third and fourth in the Big Ten East. So that's what they have done that Harbaugh hasn't done. But I mean, all your points are completely true, and it's definitely, we're the fun team, we're the Texas that, when Texas says Texas is back, like, no, you're not Texas. We're that team.
We're the Cowboys of the
NCAA. We have a gigantic fan base, right? So it's a target on our backs at all times, and it's easy to poke fun when we fall short.
Very well said. Very well said, and I 100% agree with that.
So I've got a trivia question for you guys. Since we were talking about quarterbacks, I thought of something and I looked it up. So I figured it out. If you could each go around and guess, who was the last Michigan quarterback to beat all of their rivals, like as far as like Notre Dame, Michigan State, Ohio State, whoever we played that year, as far as a rival, to beat all of their rivals in a season and win a bowl game?
That's tough. Oh, man.
I mean, I don't think the 97 team beat Notre Dame. I think they
beat
lost
all the rivals and win the bowl game.
They didn't necessarily have to play all three of the rivals that year. So
was
it
like someone?
They could have only played Michigan State or Ohio State, or just played Ohio State that year. But as long as they went undefeated versus the rivals that year, that counts.
Was it like someone on our list?
He was on somebody's list. Yes,
he was on somebody's list.
Yep.
It's Tom Brady.
Kalen.
Was it John Navarre?
Denard.
Nope, not Denard. Bro, what do you got?
Henny?
Nope. Drew Henson.
Oh.
Drew Henson, 2000.
He beat
Michigan State and Ohio State.
Counterpart.
Yeah.
Yep. He beat Michigan State and Ohio State, and then he beat Auburn in the Citrus Bowl.
Yep.
That was the last time we beat our rivals in one season and won a bowl game.
Do you ever think about, too, that what if it were to happen today under Harbaugh, if we did the same thing that Lloyd Carr did with Tom Brady and Drew Henson, and just went like one starts the first quarter, one starts the second quarter, and whoever does the best in that game starts the second half. That's literally what Lloyd Carr did back then with Drew Henson and Tom Brady.
I'm for it.
But if I'm just saying, if Harbaugh did that today, the media and probably his own fans, including us, some of us, would be like, what in the hell are you doing? Like, we got to stick with one guy. Like, you're insane. But Lloyd Carr did it, and it turns out it was the GOAT and Drew Henson, who actually had a great career too.
So did that happen every game?
Yeah, he did that for an entire season. Yeah.
Oh. Ooh. Well, okay, maybe not. I don't know.
First part of the season until I think Brady ended up taking over at some point. He started out playing Henson by quite a bit, but he did it for like a good chunk of the season.
I would almost kind of like that with McCaffrey and Milton, though.
We might be there
against kind of like the the lower level teams, like when we play, I think Ball State and Arkansas State. Fuck it, let me see both of them.
Yeah, but I thought Lloyd Carr did that against like Notre Dame. Like it was like serious games.
Yeah.
Yeah. What you're saying that now, and then watch we're playing like Ball State in the fourth quarter, or like
we're getting killed.
Like what the hell, Harbaugh?
Who thought he should have done that? We're going back in the tape.
Man.
Just rolling.
That's a great question. That's some good trivia right there. Okay, well, we'll take it from the best of a bygone era to the best of the future. So Nate, I know you have some stuff to talk about in terms of recruiting and some recruits that hopefully will pan out.
Me too.
Well, I butchered it last time. So this is our second take.
Okay,
John
so I'll
Bears,
lead you.
but-
I'll lead you through it this time. Okay, how's that sound?
That
Okay.
sounds good. Yeah.
Okay, I know that we have some good linemen coming in because this is a great lineman class. We especially because we have a lot of new linemen this year. We're going to be seeing a lot of new guys coming in who progress and probably take their spot in the next 3 to 4 years. Tell me who's like the best 2 to 3 linemen coming in this class.
Best 2 to 3 linemen coming in this class. I don't know. Well, we got 3 commits. I think Giovanni El Hadi. Like, I really hope he does not decommit. I heard him in one of his interviews talk about LSU a little bit, and honestly, all of our guys, it seems like who we're looking at are also getting looked at by Ohio State, LSU, so Notre Dame. So I'm happy that all these guys are being considered by big time programs. But we got 3 commits so far: Raheem Anderson, Greg Crippen, Giovanni El Hadi, and then we got to wait on these 2 other guys who are both from Clarkston, Michigan. Garrett Dellinger and Rocco Spindler, whose dad played in the NFL. So those guys have talked about being a package deal. I know Garrett Dellinger is currently projecting him to go to LSU, so we'll see. But we got a lot of talent here. There's still other guys too. We got a whole bunch of 4 stars. Honestly, this is going to be a great offensive line class. And Ed Warner, man, he's obviously doing a great job.
Oh, yeah.
So really excited about that class. And then you get a great offensive line, and guess who you got as your quarterback? J.J. McCarthy, right? Super accurate, can hit tight windows. Some of his passes that he has where he's giving these like back shoulder type of throws, insane. I mean, so I'm really excited to see how that turns out.
Wait, we have a hyped up quarterback recruit coming in. We've never seen this before.
Hey, stop it. Okay, I can dream.
Well, it's funny you say that.
He's
Go
Can you
for it,
imagine
Nate.
that too?
Work ethic.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, but
Another
Nate,
cool
imagine
thing-
this.
Jack, go ahead.
Another cool thing I like about J.J. McCarthy, and I don't know, maybe it's just my experience, like when I played sports, dude, hockey players are insane, right? They're just so tough, right? He played hockey, was like, considering which sport he should like choose, right?
Oh,
So,
really?
dude,
I
I
didn't know
love
that.
back. It's like a hockey player. I don't know. That's just like I like a guy who's tough, can stand in the pocket, take a hit, make a deep throw, boom. So I'm excited. I
Jack,
think that's
go ahead.
Dude, one of the
Love that.
Yeah, I mean, like back with the hockey players, I think one of the best athletes I ever, I ever knew or played a sport with. Kayla and I played baseball at Pioneer. We played with Travis Mazies. He was a stud hockey player. Like, was gonna play USA hockey. He ended up playing baseball for Michigan, but one of the most unreal athletes I've ever played a sport with. But Nate, what I was going to tell you is, imagine we get all these offensive linemen. We got J.J. McCarthy coming in, possibly Donovan Edwards, and your boy Blake Corum. Your boy Blake Corum's back there.
Yeah, man.
RBU's here.
Dude, I'm telling you,
Give him a good line. I mean,
you know what's crazy though? We're 4th in the Big Ten right now. But I mean, like, we still gotta wait to see it play out. A lot of I think Minnesota has a higher rank than us, but they just got like a whole bunch of 3 stars.
Right. And we're looking at bigger guys, right? Like 4 or 5-star guys hopefully commit. Yeah.
Well, the thing with the 2021 class is for a long time, it was only J.J. McCarthy and Giovanni El Hadi. So those guys have been there for a really long time and doing some of the legwork on the recruiting, reaching out. So I've heard that, what's his name, Rocco Spindler. I've heard that guy talks to JJ all the time. I read some article that Rocco said he gets 80 to 100 texts a day from different recruiters and other like players trying to recruit him. And the main rival for him is Notre Dame. So some of these other schools that, we play against, like Ohio State, Notre Dame, Penn State, great schools, are competing for the same players. I think that puts us in good company. What do you think about that?
Agree 100%.
Yep.
Yeah, that was one thing that I put up on Instagram, that little video was when, this whole JT Daniels thing kind of became popular. And talking about JJ McCarthy, he's, not only the most talented guy in the class right now, but he's one of the best recruiters that we have in that 2021 class. And if he can sway Rocco Spindler to come play at Michigan, awesome.
Yeah, he's definitely JJ has been working his butt off to get a line in front of him. I think he knows, like, I can't be the guy at Michigan if there aren't 5 big dudes in front of me that are going to do the legwork before me. So it's awesome to see that. I will say on a negative note, I'll be a negative Nancy here for a minute, but I feel like we're still just so far behind Ohio State in recruiting, man. It just hurts because I see them get 5-star after 5-star after 5-star, and I think I saw something like they have more 5-stars coming in than the rest of the Big Ten, or more. Maybe it was top 100 recruits coming in than the rest of the Big Ten combined. That's just insane to me. It's an insane stat, and it doesn't bode well for the future, I feel like, for us. But you know what? I think that there's also something to say for those 5-stars, but there's also something to say for us getting guys that buy into the program and work their butts off for it. You know what? Mark D'Antonio made a freaking living off of 3-stars that wanted to come play for him and bought into the program. So if Jim Harbaugh can do the same thing, then we'll be all right with these not 5-stars.
And I'll add in as well. Like I talked about, we needed like an it guy, and I think all these great surrounding pieces with a couple dudes who are just incredible can surpass us. Maybe just in that one game, in November. So, yeah.
I'm with you. Yep, 100%. Okay, well, it sounds like we got some good recruits coming in, and it sounds like, we got recruits doing the recruiting as well as some really great coaches doing the recruiting as well. So hopefully we get the right guys in the right spots to win the right games. So from there, I would like to move into, we know what we're doing. What is everyone else doing? What's going on around the Big Ten? Ro, I think you got something to say here. So.
Yeah, so I'll give you guys like my top 3 schools or top 3 teams from each division in the Big Ten that I think will be at the top next year. I'll start with the West, which is obviously not our division. It's still going to be Wisconsin, I think, in the West. They've been at the top for the past 3-4 years now. It's definitely a closer race than it has been in the past few years. With, I think, Minnesota coming up as number 2. But I still think Wisconsin is up there. They're going to have Jack Cohn back there still as their QB. They do have to replace Jonathan Taylor, who was, outside of what's his name? I can't think. Who's their Heisman guy?
Melvin Gordon.
Wisconsin. Melvin Gordon and the So Jonathan Taylor is up there as one of the best running backs in Wisconsin history. So replacing him won't be any easy task, but they have the line. The offensive line is what really does it for them. So they have a junior, Nakia Watson, coming in, who's probably going to be a stud too. They recruit the offensive line and the running backs and kill it there. Minnesota, though, I think is really close behind. They had an unbelievable year last year, ended up beating Penn State for PJ Fleck's signature win, and he's he earned his contract there. I think they're really building something. And they've got a lot of guys on the offensive side that are coming back. Tanner Morgan is a stud quarterback that's coming back, and he's bought into that program, and he leads that team fearlessly. They've got 2 wide receivers that were unbelievable last year too, Rashad Bateman and Chris Autumn-Ball, who have both been studs for them. So I think they'll be a close second. I really do think it's a toss-up as far as 1-2 in the who could be in – going to Indy in the Big Ten West. And then Iowa, I think, is the 3rd team there. Iowa has to they have to replace Nate Stanley at QB, which is not an easy task. He was there for a few years. So Spencer Petras will be the guy there. They've got Tyler Goodson at running back and Mika Sargent, who they'll be a 1-2 punch there. Last year they both had, I think, 700 and 600 yards or something like that. So they run the ball a lot, obviously, but they'll be taking probably the same amount of snaps there. My sleeper for the West has got to be Nebraska. I mean, Scott Frost, he's obviously underperformed so far since he's been there, but I just think that he's got to be, at some point he's got to put it together. Adrian Martinez is a stud at QB. They've got to figure that out. I think that, they're in year 3 now, I believe, with Scott Frost. It'll start really clicking here, and they'll start moving forward a lot better than they have in the past. And then on the east side, which is Michigan's division. So no surprise here. I have Ohio State at number 1. Justin Fields he had 40 touchdowns and 1 interception last year. So I don't know if he can top that, then everybody in the whole NCAA is in trouble.
Just give him the Heisman.
He probably is going to be the Heisman front runner going into the year, honestly, between him and Trevor Lawrence. But they do have some question marks for sure. So they have to replace J.K. Dobbins. Master Teague has an injury, I believe, is the rumor. Who knows what's going on there?
I saw Jack smiling when you
Love
said
the name.
That's a Hall of Fame name, man.
Oh yeah.
His parents named that baby knowing he was about to go to the NFL for sure.
Oh.
So, but they've got a couple other guys, DeMario McCall and Marcus Crawley, who are both studs too. That's what Ohio State does. They have depth at every position nearly, and so even if Master Teague isn't the guy, they're still going to be all right at the running back position. But they do have a lot more question marks on the defensive side. So they have guys that have come up, but guys that have not gotten snaps. Jeff Okudah is going to be, hopefully he's going to the Lions, but he's going to be a top 3 pick in the NFL draft. So replacing that type of talent is tough in the secondary. And then, of course, Chase Young is probably going to go number 1 overall. So those guys, I want to say you don't replace those guys just with anybody, but it seems like Ohio State tends to do that. But if anything, they have question marks in their defense. I would put Penn State probably at number 2 here. They're very close with Michigan. Sean Clifford had a great year last year for them, but they do lose KJ Hamler. I know every Michigan fan knows who KJ Hamler is after the year last year. He torched us on 3 different plays, and I think he had 300 yards. So they'll have some new wide receivers coming in, but Penn State will still be solid, I think, with a veteran QB in there. And then Michigan, of course, who knows who will be the quarterback coming into the year. And we have to replace some guys on the O-line, but we are RBU coming up, as you all know, according to Blue by 90. And so we'll be good there. We also have some guys on the defensive side that have come back. Ambry Thomas and Vincent Gray, and we have a solid secondary, and Daxton Hill, who we're all very excited about at the safety position. The only thing that we don't really know about the defense is the D line. So our D line is going to have some new faces possibly in Mozzie Smith and a couple other guys. So. I have Michigan at 3 there, but I think that between Michigan and Penn State, it's a toss-up for the top 2 and 3 spots there. We'll see how the year goes, and then Indiana is my sleeper. So Indiana went 7-5 last year. That's their best record since 1993. So it's been a long time coming for them there, but I think that they could be moving in the right direction. It seems like we have a tough game with Indiana every single year for some reason. But I think that they could make some noise and maybe have some upsets coming up here in the Big Ten East.
You got Michigan at 3, man? Just
I
like
do
taking a
have-
very safe pick. You're like, I don't want to get too down if it doesn't go the way I hope it does.
I'm trying to manage everybody's expectations here. If I put us at 1.
Last year I was that dude. This year, I think we got a shot, man.
Dude, Nate, last year you were like breaking my heart. Last year you were like, we might win 6 games.
Dude, I've said it. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I don't always agree with Nate right away, but his track record speaks for itself. If he's on the hype train, I'm on the hype train. He called that we weren't going to be that good last year. We weren't that good last year. He talked about, God, who did he talk about last year that I didn't think was going to be that good, and they were really good. And you talked about Chris Evans going to be coming back, and he's going to be really good. So I'm buying into everything Nate has to say. So if Nate thinks we're good, I say we're winning the Big Ten. At least getting a share of the title. We'll get a trophy for it, right?
Yeah, I'm now the only guy here with a beard, so I don't know if there's some magic to it. But Jack, what was you just leaving me hanging now? Just decided to shave it all off?
I'm a weird guy, guys. Okay, and when I get bored, I do some weird things. I'm honestly shocked. I still have hair on top of my head. But so what happened is on the weekends, Heather and I eat out. All right, so we ended up getting B-dubs. We got some wings. They weren't boneless; they were traditional wings. So Nate, as a guy with a beard, when you're eating boneless wings or traditional wings with sauce on them, they get all in your beard, and it's unbearable. It makes me cringe. Like I feel like I have like nails on a chalkboard. It's awful. So I I ate half of my wings that were on my plate, couldn't take it anymore, went to the bathroom, shaved my beard off, cleaned off my face, ate the rest of my wings, and it was delightful. I was so happy for the last 15 minutes, and then I woke up this morning and looked in the mirror and I was like, Jesus. So I regret it today, but yesterday it was a great choice for me.
I've never heard of that, a pre-shaved chicken wing eating event.
It's a move.
It's unbelievable.
The before and after. We'll put you on the new B-dubs commercial or something.
Yeah, get me up there with Bob Maneri.
We'll have to see if any of our listeners have any weird eating habits like that. Like I've never heard a beard getting in the way of your wings.
That's great.
Dude, it's awful. Like it's just on the sides. You can't like lick it off. So you gotta like wash your face. Like at least if you have like a clean shaven face, like you can like wipe it off with a paper towel. If you've got a beard, like the smell stays in there. It's just I can't handle it. So I had to do something.
So what made you more uncomfortable? Eating the wings with a beard or watching Shea try to throw a deep ball?
Ooh, good question.
Tough question.
Oh God,
I'm gonna say Shea. I don't have this issue, so I just eat the chicken wings. It's probably because I'm just like, oh my God, okay, it's time to eat. I don't even.
I gotta say the chicken wings. The chicken wings bothered me more.
Oh man.
I think they did, yeah.
Okay, well, that was a great report from Bro. Can we just acknowledge that? Like, I'm about to type that up and send it to Jim Harbaugh. That was great.
I'm sorry I didn't have Michigan higher. I wish I could have Michigan higher, but I'm not on your hype train yet, Nate, because you know why? We have to go to Columbus, and I have been to Columbus way too many times and gotten my heart broken. So I will be hesitant until we get past that.
That's fair. Yeah, we got to move past Penn State, and then we got to move past the beast that is Ohio State, and that's just at this point. I mean, I don't know. It seems not very likely, but I have hope. So
we always got to have hope. So
you gotta have hope. Yeah, it's about all we got.
All right. Well, I'm gonna move into the next part, our next segment here. Where I gotta have hope is that we can stop the run at Ohio State, and that our defense can actually stop them enough that we can put up some points. Right. I think our defense has been the question mark in big games. Is that fair to say?
More than fair to say, for sure.
Okay. Well, I read an article from USA Today where ESPN predicted Michigan defense at number 11. And their reasoning was that they're good, but they're not great. They can't, stop the really good teams, the Alabamas, the Ohio States, even the Penn States, right? And so what I want to see is, where is this team headed? Is there hope there? And I really think there is. I mean, yeah, we lose out like Khaleke Hudson, Uche, Lavert Hill, but we have some guys that I think we can kind of plug in, and some guys that if we give them time to improve, that we can plug them in and they'll really shine, right? So right away up front, I mean, Aiden Hutchinson, Kwity Paye, those guys are going to be great. But there's also some other guys that could step up. Taylor Upshaw, David Ajabo. And I don't know if you guys remember this kid that they found in Germany that was just like a phenom athlete, Julius Welschoff.
Yep.
This is a good time for him to play some good defensive end if he can step up. The kid was like 6'4", 240, and he ran like a 4.5 or something absurd.
So, I remember that. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah. So this kid's just been practicing, and I'm like, dude, it's a good time to get him on the field. Why not?
Well, and I will say, to add to that, if there's one thing that Don Brown has done, is he's created these guys that, out of nowhere have become really good on our defensive line. Chase Winovich, Aiden Hutchinson, those guys weren't huge recruits, and they aren't even the biggest guys out there, but Chase Winovich is out there playing on the Patriots, and Aiden Hutchinson is one of the top defensive ends in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and I hope he can take who I think is our guy with the best name on the team, Luigi Villain. I want to see that dude on the field just so that I can be like, dude, his last name looks like villain, dude. Like, come on.
So, love it. Yeah.
I think defensive end, we got some good depth there. Defensive tackle, you could see us getting steamrolled there. I think a little bit we were playing that 3-man front. We had Carlo Kemp, who I think is a great team leader, but I think we might have some better athletes who have just really started to progress. And so that's where, when we're talking about guys, I think you had already mentioned, Ro, Chris Hinton, Mozzie Smith. Those are some big boys, highly ranked recruits. And I think they can really step up. Even guys like Donovan Jeter, who's been there a little bit longer, he's also a big boy, and he can step up in that defensive tackle spot. And I think we could even run a 4-man front here. I don't know if there's any input on that.
That would be beautiful. Can you imagine, too, like Mozzie Smith and Chris Hinton, like right in the middle there? Oh, yeah. Man. With Kwity Paye and Aiden Hutchinson's on the outside? Oh, God. That, like, yes. I would love it.
And what that does then is free up our linebackers so we don't have to blitz 4 downs every, that's what it seems. And I like that we blitz a lot because it puts pressure on them. But you know why Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, the ones with the big boys up front, why they are so good is because they can do a 3- and 4-man rush and still get pressure on the quarterback. And so I'm, as much as I love Jordan Glasgow, and I saw somebody talking about how Jeff Spate is Wilton Spate's little brother, who's a D lineman and he's a walk-on, how he could be contributing. You know what, man? I'm sorry, but I want those 4- and 5-star guys, the big boys, Chris Hinton and Mozzie Smith, to come up and plug those holes, man, and create pressure and create havoc, right from the get-go. And then we can allow our linebackers to free up and cover some of these tight ends. And it just makes it so much easier for the rest of the defense to actually do their job instead of having to always – the only time it seems like we can get a stop or get a turnover is if the quarterback's running for his life. If the quarterback ends up having time against Don Brown's defense, there's somebody open that they end up finding. So I like those guys for sure, like you said, Kalen, to go in and with a 4-man front to cause some havoc up front. And
if we do have a 4-man front, like I'm confident in the 2 deep, right? We've got at D tackle, we've got Carlo Kemp, Donovan Jeter, Mozzie Smith, and Chris Hinton. So, right? So we got the 2 deep covered. At the edge, for our edge rushers, we've got Kwity Paye and Aiden Hutchinson, Ojabo, Villain. We've even got the Taylor Upshaw. We've got the friggin' guy from Germany you guys are talking about. Like, it sounds like we have some depth there where if we can run a 4-man front and get constant pressure on the quarterback that way, I mean, with the guys that we've got in the secondary, Brad Hawkins, I think it's going to be his senior year. Vincent Gray, I'm super high on. Like, I love him. Ambry Thomas is back. Daxton Hill's got a year under his belt. Andre Seldon might get playing time. Obviously, we have Josh Ross and Cam McGrone back. Like, I'm pumped, man. I'm really excited for this defense and to see what can happen. But yeah,
I'm really not worried about linebackers, to be honest, just because I mean, we got Cam McGrone, we've got I think Josh Ross, and then
Michael
I keep hearing great things about
Anthony
Michael
Solomon.
Solomon. Yeah. So I mean, I think that group is pretty well set, and based on what I've heard and read about, they feel very comfortable with the guys they got in that group. And the group we really need to step up is the secondary, right? And Jack, you already touched on a lot of these guys: Vincent Gray, Ambry Thomas. But another guy that I think might get a good shot is Jimon Green. I don't know if you remember those 2 brothers.
Twins, all right?
Yep. So Jemon Green and German Green, I think is his brother's name. Those 2 guys will get a good shot as DBs. Another guy who I think honestly has a really good shot to play, Andre Seldon. I mean, they need all the athleticism and speed they can have at those positions. And Seldon, based on what I hear, fast, super athletic. He can jump out the gym. So, I mean, I say put that guy on the field. Why not? We had great success with Dax. So what do you guys think about that?
Whoever the best athlete is, throw him on there.
Yep.
Plain and simple.
Yeah, and I think, we got to do some different packages to get these guys in. If they're good enough to be on the field, don't make them sit. Even though we've got 2 deep, where we have studs at both, the 1s and 2s, I think you have to get these guys onto the field somehow and get them, real live reps in big games. That's where I think we've struggled in the past is we have these stud recruits come in and then they don't see the field until they're a junior, or even a sophomore. And then all of a sudden they're a junior, they're a starter, but they haven't been on the road in Columbus or, at Penn State, and all of a sudden they crumble. That's what it seems like where we struggle the most. So getting these guys reps and whether it be different packages or sub them in for a few plays, get our guys some rest. I think we got to help these guys transition into their roles.
Yeah, well said. I think that's well said. I mean, like I'm trying to point out here, we have a lot of depth at a lot of these defensive positions, which I think puts us in a good position to play against the highly ranked, high-level teams.
Mm-hmm. For sure. That's what you got to have to keep up for 4 quarters.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'll mention something, too. I think in years past, right, it's not necessarily been like, well, we've had some issues, I think, with our secondary and also trying to deal with the speed that guys, teams like Ohio State have. I think this year, though, I'm a little bit more – I feel more secure or safe with the DBs that we have. So, I think that this defense is going to be really good. We're going to be really fast. And I think Don Brown last year, even though Ohio State didn't work out the way we wanted it to, like you did see him put some zone in there. So I think he's obviously aware of it. So I think the defense over the past several years is kind of like a learning process. And I think this defense with the amount of speed that we have is really going to end up being one of the best defenses in the country. So I'm excited. And I think guys like Dax Hill, Cam McGrone, who are super fast, I think they're going to lead that on both levels.
I'll say one more thing about the defense too, and even last year's defense was, I thought it was a great defense except for 3 plays a game. That's when we got hurt. I think back to the Wisconsin game. We gave up, Jonathan Taylor on a 70-yard run or something like that. And that's not even what Wisconsin does. They pound the ball, but same thing with Penn State. We gave up, 2 or 3 big balls to KJ Hamler. Ohio State, we gave up long passes to these guys after, we'd stop them on first down and second down, and then all of a sudden they throw it deep and make the big play. And so, that's where we've gotten hurt and where we need to, it's a great defense, and it has been statistically over Don Brown's tenure here. But, we just can't give up that big play time after time after time. It seems like we are so good for 95% of the game, and then we get beat on those 5%, but they end up in scoring, in whether it's a touchdown or something, or just a big play. And so that's where they really have to improve, in my opinion.
I think you're 100% right. Giving up the big plays has been huge for us, obviously. I think of that big pass play against Penn State to Hamler from last season, and that was a knife in the heart. Mm-hmm. Jack, Nate, you guys got anything to add to that?
No, man. No.
All right.
Nope.
Well, with that, I think we'll wrap it up. If anybody has anything else to say, nope, doesn't sound like it. So I think it's time we'll wrap it up. So check us out on Instagram and Twitter at Blue by 90, and check us out on YouTube at Blue by 90 Podcast. Everybody, everyone's good.
Yeah.
Go Blue.
Stay safe. Blue.
Go Blue. Go Blue. Thanks.